Welcome to another episode of InPodSicated with Big Z. Of course, I'm Big Z. And this week, oh my God, what a great episode with recording artist Pinqy Ring. And she's a youth advocate and does so much in the community and takes hip hop abroad and does workshops all over the world. What a great interview. We got into it. Is just a local recording artist that we met years and years ago, and serendipitously we saw each other again in May. And it's definitely a great story to talk about her story in hip hop, her struggles in hip hop, her achievements, everything that she's gone through. We joke around a lot. She is such a great personality, a big heart. And we talk about healing and being yourself, and a lot of self-reflection as an artist. So it's a definite hip-hop artisty, very healing, very self-awareness kind of episode, and I know you're gonna like it. I really do, because it's free flowing and it's a good time. So um getting podsicated with Big Z and Pinky Ring. Oh, look who we have in the house. We have recording artist Pinky Ring. Thank you for joining in Podsicated.
I'm
How are you,
good. Brr, brr,
sweetheart?
brr, brr. We got a reggaeton horn somewhere.
Oh, we go. We got some
Yes,
studio
love it.
audience. Oh my god! Oh my god! You know what? It's been a while, but I been trying to get your attention for a while to get you on the podcast. I've been podcasting for about 4.5, 5 years now, mostly sports and stuff like that. But this adventure has been more about getting to know interesting people that I've come across in my life. And it just so happens that your life is very interesting, and I want to get your story out there because I see you, I follow you on your socials, and you're doing so much within the community. But let's start off with you being a recording artist, and you know, how did you get started in that?
Well, interestingly enough, I got started in music because I wanted to prove to the boys that I could do what they could do and do it much better than they could do it. Um, oh, I think my are we?
Okay, I think I'm
I
losing
think
your
might
signal
be
here.
having some issues with connection. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can. Yeah, if froze for a second.
Okay, let me just.
Yeah. Right.
The internet just be interneting as the internet does.
Yeah, yeah. I had the same situation. We were recording our 200th episode last night, and all of a sudden, the internet's going bonkers. I'm like, there's nothing plugged into it right now. It's just weird.
Right, like why you won't let me
Yeah,
be great?
it looks good now. Right.
Yeah, just let me know if I'm freezing up or anything, and I'll try to move to another space, but hopefully you can
Yeah.
hear me. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
music really was it was a lot of things for me. The main one being particularly hip hop specific, right? Because there's the music industry and then there's hip hop culture, um, and hip hop music specifically.
Mhm.
So, again, the main reason was I wanted to prove to the boys that I could do what they could do. But the second reason was I had a story to tell, and I wasn't seeing myself in the stories that were being told. And I knew that there was a therapeutic value to me putting pen to paper and writing out the things that were happening in my life, even if I wasn't taking ownership of them in that moment. So I might not have been saying this is happening to me,
Mhm.
but I might have been creating a character, a fictional character, and putting my sort of experiences and sometimes traumas on this person so that I can find a way to like liberate myself from those situations. So hip hop culture is interesting because today earlier I was speaking for a national university for their psychologists and their counseling department and their therapists. And first of all, you never thought that hip hop will make it this far. I mean, I did. I don't know who else didn't, but I certainly did. But there are a lot of people that did not. So to just see that this thing that really held me as a youth and gave me a platform and a voice, that I'm able to share these experiences with people who are clinical practitioners of mental health, like it just brings it full circle for me because music has always been something that called me, but I didn't know why. And music has been the biggest love of my life, but also the greatest frustration of my life. So to see that it's sort of manifesting in this way for me is really incredible, and I'm really grateful for sticking with it, because I know you've known me and I've been doing this forever, ever. And the fact that I'm still doing it is
Yeah.
just a testament to how much it holds, and it heals me, and it helps me really just manifest the vision of the world that I want, but the life that I want for myself also.
Awesome. So when did you start putting pen to paper?
So pen to paper
At what
was
age?
before hip hop even entered into my life. Um, I've always been a writer,
Okay.
so poetry, story writing. I remember my mom is like, she saved some of the stuff from our childhood, and so I found a book that
Nice.
I wrote, and it was about a young person who was questioning their sexuality, and I'm like, I was ahead of the game because that wasn't even the thing we were talking about then, right? I'm only 21, so I'm not gonna age myself because in my
Right.
heart, I'm 21 forever. But like that was a time where that's not what we're talking about. It's not accepted. It's very taboo. So I've always been a writer. Writing always came really easy to me. Reading was always a big interest of mine. So pen to paper was, definitely probably third, fourth, fifth grade. Um, for
Well, that's
sure, for
pushing
sure.
water.
And
Yeah.
that's why now, like, that's why college was dope for me. Even though I haven't used my degree, like, ain't
Hmm.
one person asked me for a transcript yet. They're like, we trust you, Pinky. And I'm like, don't you want to see the paper that I paid all this money for? And they're like, no, you good. I'm like, damn it,
Yeah,
expensive paper. Um, but
for sure.
writing has always been something that's just, it's like riding a bike proverbially. Like, it's just, you do it and it's easy for me particularly. Um, and then when it manifested into
Hmm.
songwriting, that's when it sort of opened up like new areas of creativity and trauma, right? Because once you start writing about stuff, the trauma starts coming, and it don't go anywhere. It's there, and you got to deal with it, and you got to unpack it as well. Um, so yeah, like very young pen to paper, and still to this day very old pen to paper. I love writing. I love, but when I post things, I have long captions. Like, I love words, and I love language, and I love playing with you know vocabulary and sounds, and I'm just a huge nerd when it comes to that.
I mean, that's pretty cool because if it's funny enough, is like we have these talents and we have them at such a young age, and most of us don't realize that we have these talents or don't go into these talents, right? As our generation, where you go to school, get a job, have a career, buy a house, the whole, here are your steps to being what the norm is. And as we realize in our generation now, that norm was thrown out the window, completely thrown out the window. The house is burned down, tornado came through, tsunami came and washed it out. All that stuff is, there is no norm, there is no clear path to a successful person. Your success is going to come from your grind and your passion, and that's what you have to follow. So with your passion of your pen to paper, and then you started talking about hip hop, and what your hip hop wasn't representing who you were. What were some kind of influence that you did kind of gravitate
um
to?
do you mean like artists? Yeah, so
Correct.
it's funny because as an adult practitioner of hip hop and hip hop culture, I look back and I'm like, y'all were all real problematic, right? All these artists were like hella problematic, and I'm like, what? Oh my goodness, Biggie, what are you saying, Biggie? That's not okay. All right, okay. So,
Mm,
taking into consideration the fact that now as an adult, I look back and I see, right, the myriad of ways that maybe some of these artists were problematic in their personal lives and even in their music. Um, I think it's really important to note that for me, musical inspiration came from representation, right? That came from people who I could look at and see myself in one way, shape, or another. Whether it was the stories they were sharing, whether it was the struggles that they were going through, whether it was their gender expression, whether it was their nationality. The artists that I gravitated towards were people that I saw and said, if they can do this, I can do this too, which is a lot of the reasons why I continue to pursue my artistry, because I know that you can't be what you can't see. And so the more young people that can see a reflection of themselves in me, the more that we're going to build like an equitable world for creatives and for artists. So, Big Pun was a huge influence for me. His lyrical ability, his being very proud Puerto Rican.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, he was your favorite rapper's favorite rapper, right? To this day, like rest in peace, rest in power to him. People still to this day will talk about how influential he was, and all of the incredible work that he would have done had he still been with us on this earth side. Um that in the
Yeah.
middle, a little did we like like that for me, I was like,
We-
I want to do that. The way that I felt captured by it, I was like, ooh, if I could do that with words to someone else, I got them, right? Like, that's it, I got you. And so that's why if you
Mhm.
listen to a lot of my music, it's highly lyrical, it's very lots of metaphors, lots of allusions and all of that, because I pull from the inspiration of him and who he was. Like, he was so dope and such a proud Puerto Rican, and the first Latin artist to go platinum. Like, all of those things were really important for someone like me who was, struggling to find her identity within the music industry and within hip hop
Mhm.
particularly. And then I would be remiss to not mention all the women, right? Lauren Hill and Foxy Brown and even Remy
Right.
Martin and Lil Kim and MC Light, and right, like all of these women that were incredibly dope, that I'm like, that's power, right? Like the fact that you can navigate these spaces and be very certain and prideful of your womanhood. That was dope to me, because I kept experiencing lots of pushback, because I'm a young woman, because of my femininity, and lots of sexual harassment as well in the music industry, being a woman. So seeing them standing in their power and their, their lyrical power, but also their sexual power and their identity, like that was really influential to someone like me, again, who as a young woman was trying to figure out her place in the world. And then I see these women who have this platform and they're just dope. Like, can't no one say they're not dope. Like, they can hold their own with any guy in the music industry. That for me was really important, because that allowed me to know that I can model my career as a hip hop artist and as an MC in that sort of image and vision.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I think representation is key because you have these women who started off doing, um, they were featured on someone's album and some songs, this is and that, and then all of a sudden you're like,
Right.
she's got a tour?
Right.
Who's gonna be on this tour? And then, she's like, oh, I have this girl and this girl and this girl. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, whoa, it's an all woman tour. And then you go see it and you're like, wow, that's one of the greatest concerts I've ever seen because they're out there to prove a point that they can hang with the big boys. They can hang that with lyrically, they can do production, they can do the best concert out there, and they want that word of mouth is saying, you've got to go see this girl. She put on a show and she sounds exactly like the record. This ain't no auto tune stuff like that. So I agree with you that with representation, and if you can gravitate to someone who's doing it very well, you can model yourself after that and then make it your own. And that's a pretty cool thing to do. Um, so you've been a recording artist for how many
I'm
years
only
now? Is it
21,
more than?
so
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
only 21. So
Right.
you got to do
So
the
I'm straight
math.
out the
You
room.
subtract, then you divide, then you carry the two, and then no, almost 2 decades now. Almost 2 decades.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, obviously you've mentioned some of the things that might have been a hindrance, especially like you have it's always been a male dominated industry. The glass ceiling. There is the sexual harassment. But what other obstacles did you face, or are you facing,
A
on your
lot
way
of
to
the
stardom?
things and struggles that I'm facing, can be gender based, right? And it's just even simply the fact that you get overlooked, right? Or you don't get taken seriously because you're cute, but you can't rap. You know what I'm saying? Like it can't possibly be
You
both of
can't
those
be
things. You
both.
know what I'm saying? And when we're literally talking about women who are bad AF and could hold their own on the microphone, it's like Do y'all know about hip hop history?
Mhm.
Like, do I need to like go and show you the examples of like these dope women? So a lot of it that it's being overlooked. It's, feeling like you're, you know, the minority. And we are, even though like, people of color and women like we're about to be the global majority, and you feel so small. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you feel like you're not being paid attention to. And I'm already 5 feet tall. So you're not gonna make me feel more small than that. Like, come on, y'all. Like, I'm 5 feet, but the bars are 6'2". Okay. So you're not about to make me feel
There you
littler than
go.
I already am, like physically. So,
Yeah.
so that like again, like, unless you're offering something in return, they don't want to help you, right? And those things in return are just non-negotiables for me. So like my career has literally been significantly more difficult than 100% of the men based on gender, but then
Mhm.
you add into the equation just the difficulties that it is to exist as a creative person, period, right? So now we're talking about
Correct.
finances, right? Lack of healthcare, lack of stable income, lack of, I don't got no retirement plan. Like I'm a wrap till my hair turns from pink to white. Like I don't know, this is the thing that I do, and it's the thing that I'm best at. So it's the lack of stability, it's the lack of respect that creatives get when we just went through a global pandemic, and the people who got us through that were the artists, right? Were the versus battles, were the virtual concerts, were the content creators who were creating things to keep us entertained in our homes. And so that, on top of being a woman, is just like oppression on oppression on oppression on oppression, where I'm like, can I breathe? And thankfully I feel like I've been able to carve a lane and a path for myself. I'm very grateful to be also an educator and a hip hop ambassador overseas and a speaker, and all of those things. But all of those things came out of necessity. If I could be a full-time artist, like that's what I would be. Like I still, at 21 years old, y'all don't forget she's 21.
There you
Why
go.
am I still
That's
facing
right.
the
She's
same things that
21.
I was facing when I actually was 21? You know what I'm saying? Like in the music
It's
industry. It's a real shame, and like a lot of change needs to happen on the policy level in regards to musicians and equitable pay and creative artist rights and healthcare and all of those things. And that's why, I've taken that on myself as a mission. Like whenever I can, I'm fighting against somebody something, because you're not about to play us no more. Like, you know, people really, I've finally been able to like stand in my power and my truth and my voice. So like I'm not accepting the bare minimum. And in fact, like I'm gonna advocate for the next person after me. So if you don't book me because you didn't like how I, said X, Y, and Z, because you was coming at me backwards with how much you're trying to pay or when you're trying to pay or all of those things, like it doesn't matter to me anymore, because equity is the most important thing right now to me, because that's the way that we really make artists feel deeply seen and cared for, which we don't right now.
Mhm. So when you're talking about, like, not feeling equitable and not getting these opportunities, who are we talking about specifically? Like, are we talking about, somebody that owns a venue that's gonna try to book an act, or who are we specifically talking about?
Everybody can get it. Everybody can get it. No, it's a varying range. Yes, it's venues. Yes, it's managers who don't want to manage artists unless they already have 20 million views. Well, how do you get someone that's really dope to be on that platform or to get that far? It's, you know, places that book you and they don't pay you enough, or they don't pay you right
Yeah.
away, right? Like you got to wait 4 to 6 weeks, baby. My checks and my bills are due right now, right? So even that idea, I have a good friend, I'm sure you know her, Melissa Dupre, just posted on her Facebook about, if you can book me out 4 to 6 weeks in advance, you could pay me on the day that I come do my show, or you can give me a deposit before. Like there's so many. She mentioned, she's like, if
Yes.
if a school needs a plumber, are they going to pay them in 4 to 6 weeks, or are they going to pay them right now to fix what's happening in that bathroom because it's a necessity? I think what it is that
Mhm.
people don't see the arts as a necessity. They see it as a sort of luxury, when again, we literally just saw in a global pandemic who were the people that were keeping our mental health safe and together, and that was the performers, that was the artists, that was the creatives. So yeah, it's booking agents, it's, it's the music industry period, right? Like this pay to play thing. Like anyone who's listening, if you're an artist, you should never be paying to perform somewhere. Can you do some free shows? Sure, right? Like if it makes sense for your brand and there is some sort of an energy exchange happening, sure, but you don't never need to be paying to do your art. Like they're all scams, and I think that people have just seen
Yeah.
how, like, impressionable especially young creatives are, and they take advantage of them. They don't pay them enough. They're not live music they're not paying bands equitable. And and on on top of all of that, it's also policy, it's government. It's the fact that we haven't regulated, like, what musicians need to be paid. We haven't given them base salaries or a livable wage. But when you want them to shuck and jive for you at the gala, they're, now you want them, right? When you
Mhm.
want them to help you with your platform, now you but it's got to be an equal energy exchange. And I think that a lot of it is that people just do not value the arts as they should, yet they could never live their life without the arts, period.
Yeah, it's really sad because I do have a friend who's he's a I'm sorry, he's an artist as well, and I remember him telling me he's like, "Oh yeah, this dude just him. Yeah, we said, if I pay him this much, he'll let me perform at his place." And he's like, "Dude, I've got 4 albums out. I don't need you
You're
to
lucky
let
that
me
you
perform
get to be in
anywhere.
my presence.
If I want to do right." Right, if I wanna perform somewhere, I'll call that venue and say, "Hey, can I perform so and so dates? I'm open." And they'll say, "Yes, we'll book you, and here's your deposit, and then we'll pay you at the end of the show," whatever. I mean, that's the way it should be. It's a transaction. You got to secure the person to come in so that they don't not no show. So you give them a deposit. They show up, they do their job, and then you pay them after they're done with their job. It's a transaction. You're charging at the door. You're charging in advance. You're getting your money. So why, if me as an artist, why am I not getting my money? Simple as that. And you're right. Right. And it's a lot of old school way of doing business. And I think our generation now has smartened up and saying, no, we're not going to take this anymore. You're being unfair. You're taking too
Yeah.
much and we're not getting enough. And we are the ones in control because
Yeah.
we are the creatives. We're the one that make stuff. We're the one that entertain people. We mold the minds of the future.
Yeah.
We're the ones doing all this stuff. You are just a location. You're not really that important. I can go perform in the back of
Right.
an alley and I'll have a big crowd there. That's the mentality that we have now is that we don't need you. And that's what happened with the music industry, right? Before you needed to
Right.
get a manager and a record label and you have to get all these things, be able to get a CD out.
Mhm.
That is no longer the case. You can go to the recording studio, put your stuff together, mix it up, boom, boom, put it on iTunes tomorrow.
Right.
You can do that yourself. Now, am I gonna get paid
Right.
very well from
That's the
iTunes? No.
other that's the other
Spotify pay
beast
you?
that we
Not
need
really.
to we're just tackling giants here on the
But that's
podcast.
how
We
that's my
tackling
transition
giants.
there. That That's okay. That's okay.
Right.
Spotify carries the podcast. We're good. We're in good standing. No, we can talk about them. They don't. That's okay. They don't listen to my podcast. It's just Spotify. No, and that was where I was transitioning to. Is like we went from having physical records or tapes and CDs where okay, it cost me so much to get this printed or pressed or recorded onto a CD. Okay, then I have margins. This is what I can sell it for, and then this is how what my profit is. So now you have that. There is no more of that with this electronic music.
Yeah, and like
Am I
I'm
correct?
taking notes because you're reminding me of two things that I want to say. And one of the things is, as you're talking
Yeah.
about this next generation is not taking it, it's also really important that us, the OGs, like, are educating the next generation, because there there is an incredible influx of artists. There are, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of songs uploaded, I think an hour or a minute. I don't remember. There was some statistic that, like, blew my mind. So because it's so oversaturated and everyone thinks they could do it, because now we got the virals, now everyone thinks that they can. So it's much more difficult to, like, sort of manage the floodgates of artists coming in, and it's really easy to take advantage of,
Mhm.
especially young people, because they just think this is my one big chance, this is the way that I'm going to do it and make it. And so that's the reason why education is really important, and the OGs should be having these conversations with young people and being really transparent about pay rates. What should you get paid for a show, for a workshop? What are the do's and don'ts? How do you know that you're getting taken advantage of? All of those things. And then, as you mentioned, right, like money and exchange of money and negotiating rates and paying for your own artistry, because we all self-funded at this point. Like, financial literacy is also the piece
Correct.
that's sort of missing, because a lot of young people don't understand how much money goes into the art before the art goes out into the world. And so, without that financial literacy
Oh yeah.
piece, without us teaching, and once it's out in the world, how do you recoup your money? How do you reinvest that money? How do you not spend that money unwisely? Like, these are all things that we're
Mhm.
doing a disservice to the next generation, because we're not teaching them that, and there are no accessible resources for them to get that information unless they found mentorship, unless there are programs in their city that do music education and music entrepreneurship. So, like, these are all pieces that this is why young people get taken advantage of, and then this is why these sort of conglomerates and these corporations are able to take advantage, um and use sort of young people as, like, pods and cogs in their machine. And that's one of the reasons why, for me, education and being a mentor in music is really important, because I didn't know any of this. I thought I was gonna get a record deal and make
Mhm.
mad money, and I was gonna, throw it in the air, pick it back up, because I'm smart about spending my money. But I really did think that my life was gonna go in a different trajectory. And because the music industry changes every day, like, it's a
Mm.
game that, like, I'm sort of almost overplaying already, but, like, I'm so invested in figuring it out, because I wanna help the next generation of creative change agents, right? To get in there and
Mhm.
blow that ish up from the inside. Real talk.
Yeah, I feel it's it's kind of like the IRS, right? They're like, oh my God, they figured out how to
Right,
cheat us. Oh no, we're going to change the
right,
rules. We're not going to let nobody in until
right,
they meet
right.
so and so and so and so requirements, and then from there we're going to put
Mhm,
another glass ceiling and another glass, and it's just a constant hurdle that you have to jump with that. And it's weird because there is artists that have made it without the record labels. Chance the Rapper being one of the most famous ones that he has great music. He wasn't an overnight sensation. He had tons of music for tons of
mhm.
years, and like you said, self-funded, and he was able to blow up organically.
I
That
think
doesn't
people think that
happen
because
for
they saw him,
everybody.
and he's always,
And
like, the poster child of
yes.
an example. But, like, it's not like he didn't sell fun, and it's not like he didn't have partnerships. It's not like people didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, you still need
No.
support. Like, I don't want anyone to think that the music industry is a place that you can succeed in a silo, like, just you by yourself. You need a team, even if that's just your high school friends and
Mhm.
y'all all go to shows together, and you figure out a way to sell out shows so that people book you more. Like, the music industry, and I'll really more give it to, like, the hip hop culture and hip hop industry is 100% community based, and has always been community based. But what the corporations tried to do, and what capitalism tried to do, was remove community from it, right? And thinking that people can just succeed in and of themselves. That is a lonely world. And the way mental health is mental healthing, like, you going to set yourself up for failure. And so
Really.
I don't want us to forget, or to push past, or to completely disregard the communal aspect of music making. Like, that should be community based. That should be each one teach one. That should be everyone helping each other. And don't let the powers that be divorce you from that idea and that thought, because no one can make it by themselves. Not a Chance, not a Common, not a Twista, not a Shauna, not a nobody made it by themselves.
Mhm. Not at all. And like, yeah, it is very much community based when you look at, especially once you start performing at venues, you start seeing the same crowd traveling from venue to venue to venue because they support one another. Now, it may be the artists or just people that are fans
Mhm.
of you that become fans of someone else. And it is very community based. The same people do show up at all these shows, and those are the supporters those are your day ones. And those are the people that might have extra connections here and there. And you really have to market yourself and learn how to use yourself as a marketing tool. I've always told my students, the
Mm,
squeaky wheel gets the oil. If you don't speak
yeah.
up, you're never gonna know. You know, if you never ask a question, the answer is
Yeah,
always gonna be no. You know, you've got to open your mouth, and even if you don't get the response that you want, now you have the now it's in black and white. You know exactly where you stand
yeah,
with that, the answer to that question. So it is really important for them to advocate for themselves, to reach to other
yeah,
people for that help, because there is
yeah.
no one that does it by themselves. So
If I can just add one thing to what you
speaking
just said,
of venues,
um,
yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
metaphorically speaking, the squeaky wheel needs to know that it's squeaky before it can. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just a level of self awareness that is required for, especially young people, to fully understand it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. You don't know everything. I think
Mhm.
that something has shifted and
Right.
happened where, like, because we have so much information at our fingertips, I think that young people particularly feel like, well, I could just go figure it out, find it on my own, right? And again, that speaks back to the idea of community. If you don't know you're squeaky, if you don't know the signs, right, that are going to lead to the squeaking, right? Like maybe the one of the little lugs fell out, or you just moving a little slower. But there's a level of self-awareness that comes to getting to that level. And I think until we teach that, right, that is a taught skill. Self-awareness and understanding of self. Knowledge is the fifth element of hip-hop, right? Like that's the one that has become the most lost because we've forgotten that knowledge of hip-hop culture, but knowledge of self and self-awareness is one of the important, like, foundations of what this thing is. So um that's why, again, mental health and mental wellness is so important, because a therapist can help you, a school counselor can help you know that maybe you're not squeaky yet, but you're starting to get squeaky. You're getting rusty, you're getting, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And our young people are just on go, 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 pilot mode. We just gotta go. I just gotta do, I just gotta, and that's not healthy, that's not sustainable, right? So until they really get this understanding and this self-awareness, they just go, we're just a community of squeaky wheels, and I can't help you because I'm squeaky. I can't
Mhm.
help you with your, because I'm trying to figure out my squeak. I love this metaphor. I'm gonna use this forever now. But again, it's that level of
Yeah.
self-awareness, and I think that that comes from a deep dive into mental health care and the ways that there are resources that are available to young people, and also resources that are not available, or they're difficult to find, right? Or cost money and we ain't got health insurance, right? It's a myriad of things that go with that. But until we fully get to that self-awareness
It
phase,
really is.
I honestly don't know that young people, you know, even have the awareness that they're squeaky or about to be squeaky.
Yeah, they might have tons of cans of oils and don't know how to get to them. Essentially that. I mean, I deal with the youth myself, so sometimes it's like, I check in with all my young people. Are you okay? Whether they're late or I haven't seen them in a while. I don't chastise them.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on in their life. And I've told them that's all the time. Like, I don't know what's going on at home, or maybe you broke up with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever it may
yeah,
be. Are you okay? And they are dumbfounded. The blank face that they don't know how to process that question is sad. They're like, "What? An adult in the building cares?" I don't know how to it's literally like a robot
yeah,
just shutting down. They don't know how to process that, and it takes a while for them to get used to me. That I First of all, I do not wanna raise my blood pressure. I do not wanna raise my voice. So if I have to raise
right.
my voice, we got problems now. So now it's serious. So, like, if they mess up, I call them to the side. Hey, I didn't appreciate this because of this, this, and this. And from my perspective, this is what
Right,
happened. What's your perspective? Oh, it's because of this. Okay. Well, you're going to hurt somebody, or you're putting someone in danger, or you're not really acting right. Did you not eat this morning? Did you not wake up on time? Did you not shower? Did you not, it's a check-in. And a lot of these young people do not know how to comprehend that there's people out there that want
yeah,
to help them. There's lots of avenues for them to reach out to and help them. If they don't want to talk to me, that's great. We have counselors. They can talk to a counselor. That's great too. You need to see the nurse. Great. We have all those avenues available for you, but you cannot just shut down and be in the corner because then
Yeah.
no one's going to help you. And it's so sad that we see that. And I think a lot of the pandemic did that to a lot of our young people because they had nothing. They had screens. All they did was
Mhm.
become a consumer. And while some of those young people did take the outlet to make, music or write poetry or write, stories or find a creative outlet, a lot
Yeah.
and a majority were just consumers, played video games, just watched YouTube, Netflix, you know, they were not did not know how to handle it. And you had adults that didn't know how to handle it. So they had no guidance. And now we have
Yeah.
the COVID kids, the COVID generation. And it's really sad. It's like, all right, we're past that. Let's work our way out of that. Um, all right, I can go down that rabbit hole because we're both in education. We're both dealing with this. That is a rabbit
Right.
hole. That's a different podcast. Speaking of like the venues that I brought up earlier, I wanted to talk about like what was the first time you performed? How old were you? What the venue was? What were you performing? Give me paint the picture of your first performance.
My first performance was a high school talent show. Um, Lane
What high
Tech
school?
High School,
Hey,
period.
Tech. Hey, Tech.
Um, and it was funny because I was told at the time, I don't know if this is factually true because, this could have been a new teacher, but I was told that I was the first young woman to ever rap at a talent show, which was really interesting. And again, I can't fact check that. It was
I
a
can
teacher
believe
that
that.
told me that, and they might not be the best resource, but that's what they told me. So we'll see. Um,
There wasn't no one that was there, so
right?
yeah. So far so
I'm like,
good.
unless I just didn't know, or they didn't know, or who knows. But um, it was really
Mhm.
dope because first of all, I went to the Mega Mall, okay,
Of
and
course,
I got no,
got your
I got my
airbrush.
sneakers airbrushed, okay. I had some white Air Force Ones high tops, and I got them airbrushed. Hip
Okay.
on one shoe, hop on the other one. Period. I was fly. And I performed a remix to Nas's I Know I Can. And it was lit. I was real nervous. I know
Mhm.
that there's footage somewhere, and look, please, if anyone has it, like, because I know it was like probably
Ooh.
terrible, but like, I just remember doing it and feeling really good about it. And it was my first, again, experience with like emceeing, right? Mic control, master of ceremony. I'll never forget that day. I was also part of like a few dance groups, so shout out to Lane and all my friends there, like the like little cool kids. We were the cool kids with the football players at McDonald's and stuff. So I did some dance numbers too. I was part of steppers at Lane. I did a lot of
Mm.
things at Lane. But that was lit. And then from there, I remember, just speaking of venues and like community, I remember that a lot of my performances after that um, were at Club Mambo.
Oh
I was
boy.
the Club Mambo
Oh,
queen, first of all. Like I could was and it was Manny at the time. LL Manny at the time was like the promoter. So he would make flyers and I would perform there. I would perform with different collectives. Like there I had a reggaeton song, so I would perform with them. Like I was like with mad different people. Like I just now that I'm thank you for asking this question because it's taking me back to that time where like I was fully invested in music and I'll be very honest, I haven't been, and it breaks my heart because bills got to get paid. So I'm very much on this educator speaker phase. And I love that too. But it just reminds me of like how much fun music was for me. And music hasn't been
uh-huh.
fun lately for me. It's been work and or it's
Why
just
is
it's
that?
been work and it's been just the constant reminder that like this industry keeps changing, the rules keep changing, and I just don't have the energy to keep up, like I am getting older. I'm 21 years old now. My knees don't work
Yeah.
like they used to work. My back don't work like it used to work. And, everything hurts. It hurts to sit, it hurts to stand, it hurts to move it to the left, to the right. Um, But no, all jokes aside, I think that music, it's just one of the most frustrating things in my life because it's like I feel like I've done everything right. Starting from then, where I was releasing music and I
Hmm.
was performing all the time and people knew me, to now, right? The fact that it's almost 2 decades and I'm still doing this, I feel like I've done everything right, and it's almost like this hidden set of rules or this like magic button that I haven't been able to press yet to like really have the amount of success that I believe I deserve to have because my heart is fully in this. I'm in this for community, I'm in this for representation, I'm in this for equity, I'm in this to change the game and the rules of the game. So music is just it's more frustrating than fun for me these days, and that makes me really sad because as I mentioned earlier, music was my therapy. Music was the thing that I went to and did when I was feeling my worst and my best. Like I remember locking myself in the computer room at my mom's house, downloading music, aka stealing music on Napster. We remember that time. Shout out to Napster and like
Shout out to
writing
Napster.
lyrics and like, like I would just write all the time. And you know what's cool is like my nephew, I see him doing that now. Like he's constantly rapping and writing and it's just like I see him and I'm just like, that wow, that was me, like that's who I was. And I really hope that this year I find some grace and space to do that again, right? Like I want to write new music, I want to release new music, but divorcing myself from any idea of what the outcome needs to be, right? Like I'm not doing this because I needed to go viral, I'm not doing this because I
Mhm.
any of those
Mhm.
things. Like I want to just create music for the joy of creating music again because it is a therapeutic tool, period.
Right. And sometimes we have to go back to that because we get lost in the process and the outcome. And you're like, man, I've been doing this for so long and nothing's happening, or just I've moved incrementally. And you're like, and sometimes you need to take a step back and look, I started this for what reason? What do I love about it? What was fun about it? You know, what did it make me feel? And when you take a step back and you're like, I'm doing this because I love to do this. You know, it's this is the process of me writing, putting this together. It's you're in charge of building and molding and putting a final product. That's the process sometimes that artists need to take, is like, let me take a step back, look at it from 100 feet away, 100 miles away, and take a different perspective, because right now I'm lost within the forest,
Yeah.
and I can't find my way out. And I'm the same way. I This is year 4, almost 5. I'm like, hey, everybody else is blowing up. Why can't I? And I have to take that realization that
Mhm.
I'm doing this because I love to do it, and I
Yeah.
know my content's great. Like, when people on the radio are repeating the same thoughts that you literally said maybe 2 days ago, 12 hours ago, and you're not getting credit for it, and they're stealing your ideas, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm going to change the game, and start doing that. So you've got to continue to go back to find out what you love. Uh, and for me, this is my new process, my new therapeutic thing, is to interview great stories like yours, um and show different facets of myself. Not only can I talk sports, but I can talk life, and figure. And I talked to a student today, and he's like, Mr. Z, you've lived like 100 lives. I'm like, yeah, I've been in movies, I've been in music videos, yeah, I got podcasts, yeah, I've had 3 different careers. I'm like, you gotta evolve, you gotta change. You can't just sit
Yeah.
there and do the same thing over and over. That's insanity. You're not going to be happy. If something doesn't make you happy, then you gotta change it up and
Yeah.
find something that makes you happy. At the end of the day, that's the only thing we got, is our happiness. And if you can control that, great. You know? So, like, you've performed, we're doing the love, you're a mambo, you're loving every single part of it. You're performing with different types of artists, and it's fun, it's creative, it's fun, it's an outlet. You talk about it and you smile. How do we keep you there then, for you?
I think it's just the doing. I think that I have a habit, like most human beings, of just overthinking every single thing. And so if I start the process, it's like, oh, but then I got to record and then the music video and then pay money. And then what if people don't watch it? And then I just spent all this money. And that, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you use And I've been in therapy for a very long time, and I realize that that's our brain's way of protecting us, right, from doing something new and something that might hurt us or change
Mhm.
the status quo in our
Yep.
brains and our lives and our bodies. And so I think it's just the doing for me, but it's the intentional doing, right? It's the doing with, again, not removing those expectations, because when I remove those expectations, it's like I'm doing this because it's fun and because I like to do it, period. I don't care who listens to it. I don't
Right.
care how many streams, how many views. I don't care how much money I spend. Like, seeing it as a therapeutic practice, in the sense that I pay my therapist money too. Like, it's the same way that, like, no, despite what the outcome is going to be, it's just the doing. And I think that that's true for a lot of people. I think that we just get into this habit of, like, this cycle and this loop of thought patterns, like the terrible things that might happen, or the ways that this is going to be the same thing that happened last time, so I'm just not going to do it because last time it hurt me, and my brain is trying to protect my body from that sort of emotional pain. um
Process.
and I think it's that. I think, but it's the intentional doing too. I think it's like the carving out the time for it. It's n- putting my phone on do not disturb and not answering the millions of emails that are coming through, or the messages, and people need me and people want me. And I think that it's just taking the time to take the time, right? Like, creating the space and environment that this particular mission and vision that I have can flourish. Um, and honestly, it's just really hard. Like, when I think of my life and all the things I have to do and how many people depend on me and how many jobs I have, and it's just really hard. So I'm hoping and praying for a good intentional chunk of time and space where I can just really spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically just, like, dive myself into this process. Maybe like a retreat somewhere, or like, somebody give me some shaman, holla at me if you listening, just give me the space and time, and let me create, cuz a lot of it is also the hustle and bustle of the city that creates this noise in our brains that we don't even realize exists. um, so yeah, and again, I think that's true for everybody, for anyone that's, like, pontificating whether or not to do the thing, or that they've been putting off, or the thing, I think it's a matter of just letting go, but letting go with intention, and allowing yourself the space to
Mhm.
be and do and create.
What When is the best time that you're creative? Is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Is it are you
Yeah,
a late night
I didn't go
owl
to sleep
that's when
yesterday
the
till like
juice
3, 4 in the morning. So I'm definitely, the witching hour is very much real for this bruja over here. Like, definitely late night
Mhm.
are the times where, and it's been hard for me to sleep, even because it's just like thoughts and ideas and this and that and the email you got to, like, my brain is on overdrive, so it's hard to go to sleep at night, because it's almost like this is the moment that I've silenced, but in the silence is when all the thoughts that have been quieted from just the go, go, go and doing, like, start. They're like, you need to do this now. You need to figure it out now. So yeah, definitely a nighttime person. I'm not a morning person. Please, y'all, don't ever book me for nothing before like 11 a.m. And even now you pushing it. Let's do after 12. We good. But
Wow.
you know what? Like, that's
Wow.
another sort of facet of, like, capitalism, and, like, just the way that we see creatives as, like, not as good at, right? Like, what's the difference if you at a 9 to 5 versus someone who's, 8 8 to, well, I don't know,
5 to
8 to
or
4.
9
You
or
know what I'm
9
saying?
PM to
Like, I
5
think
AM,
that,
right, that's
as
completely
a
different.
society, we place value on people based on how early they wake up. But I'm like, isn't it valuable if I'm when you waking up, I'm about to go to sleep, like, because I've been working.
I just
Right.
finished my hustle and bustle, and now
Yeah. We
you're
need to we
waking
need
up,
to
right,
redo,
yeah,
we need to undo
it's
that
great.
whole idea of people's values being placed on, like, how early they get up, or what kind of job they have, or how, like, all of that is basura.
Definitely is. So I listened to a couple of songs. Oh yeah, no, I liked a couple of them. I had them on I had 'em on my phone. My phone's on Do Not Disturb, but, I did find
Okay.
something interesting in one of your songs. I think we have a similar, friend, by the name of,
Gabe
Gabe.
Ramirez.
Oh, yeah, and he's on
Yeah.
one of these songs.
Gabe actually, yeah,
Oh, I'm
Gabe is low key, high key. He 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 low key, high key.
low-key, high-key.
He was at that performance at Lane. This is how long we've known each other.
Well, he was
Yeah,
there
yeah, he
because he
came to
graduated
see
with
me
me.
perform. We were friends. Yeah, so
Oh,
from
you
that
were already
like,
friends.
that's how
Okay,
long we've known each
okay.
other, and he was my landlord for a while, like, I just moved
Uh,
out a couple months ago, so for, like, 3, 4 years. Um, yeah, like, Gabe and I go way back, and he's, written like, on Her Story, he's written, a couple of the songs as well and helped with, like, coaching some of the singers, like the song Her Story. He wrote the chorus for that, he coached the
mhm,
singer who was singing the chorus. Um, he has had a, like, really big hand in a lot of the musical things that I've done, and I miss that, right? Like, dad hashtag dad life, I see you, like, and I I got 2 cats, that's all I got, and they ask for a lot, but they don't ask as much as human children. But I do miss that because he was one of the people
no.
who helped push that creativity in me, and he was one of the first people to tell me, "The minute that it doesn't feel like it's fun anymore, you just stop doing it," right? Like, it should always feel joyous and fun and like you're doing a thing that you want to be doing, real talk. And so he was one of the people who,
Mhm,
even amidst my doubts, even amidst from the very beginnings of my career, he saw me grow and flourish. He just texted me the other day because I got a Maybelline commercial and he was like, "Yo, that sounds dope. Like, congrats." Like, I hope that he sees me and he's
yeah.
proud of what I've done, and I do miss, like, that working relationship that we had because he pushed me a lot. Like, when I was releasing my last album, he gave me the idea to do Pink Tuesdays, which is every Tuesday I would release a new freestyle based on a song that was either currently in the industry or a
Mhm.
song that was, like, an old school hip hop song that everybody loved. So I got mad verses because of that. Like, he pushed me to do that, and then one of the first videos, he's on it, like, "Hey, this is Gabe, Pink Tuesdays," like, he was always that person to, like, see what was dope in me and to, like, believe in me and to know that, like, the space that I was holding in the music industry was very deserved and that, my voice needed to be heard.
Isn't it funny? We just talked about that you need a support system and you need friends and you need that community. And look where we're at now, talking about exactly that. And it's very important for creatives to be having that friend that
Yeah.
says, you know what, you should do it. Jump into the deep end of the ocean and start
I feel
swimming,
like
bro.
this is becoming a therapy
This is a
session.
good
I know
idea.
I
Do it.
didn't sign up for this, okay? I didn't sign up for this. You over here, you reading me today.
I'm gonna send you the bill. Don't worry.
Do you take fee out? Or I got some fee I
There's
got fee
definitely
out
a
for
bill.
you. I got, like, I owe you. No, but I thank you for pouring into me because
Um,
I see what you're doing, and I'm like, "All right, all right, all right."
I told you this is completely unscripted. This is completely unscripted. So, um, we know you've performed at these small venues. Let's talk about the big venues where you performed at. So enlighten us on that. And I want you to brag about yourself because some of these
I
venues are
like to
very
brag about myself,
braggadocious.
okay? Because
I,
listen, I
I
came
know. I've
from
seen the
nothing to
video.
something, and that's the hip hop way, right? Like, honestly, it when I think of, like, the spaces that I've been in and, like, the people that have poured into me, like, it's been a product of, like, my hard work, right? And that's why, as you said, like, looking back, I don't
Mhm.
regret anything that I did because
No,
my your path is your path and
everything's a
that's your
lesson.
path, right? Like, I'm finally at the point where I'm like, I'm cool, like, and because I'm cool, like, everything keeps flowing to me. I don't gotta go get it. It just keeps coming to me. So big
Mhm.
stages, I think one of the biggest stages I ever performed on, was actually overseas. I was in Belgium and man, it was again, I've been doing this for a really long time, but it was one of the first times when I really felt what this means and can look like on a much, much greater scale. Like packed venue, like a sea of faces, and everybody's just super feeling it. Shout out to LaBelle Hip Hop. They flew me out for
Mhm.
International Women's Day. We did a series of workshops and a show. Like to the point where like after that people recognized me, so I had to like have a security guard like walking around with me. Like it was so lit.
Look at
I was
you.
like, yeah, yes, yes, we could take a picture. We could take
Get my good angle.
a picture. So that was one of the dopest. And then just on that same sort of in that same vein, like just overseas has, doing hip hop diplomacy work with the embassy, like going overseas and doing programming. And, I've been to Argentina with them. I've been to Cambodia, Nepal, Morocco. I was in Costa Rica last year with them. The program is called Next Level. And that has just been really dope because you're able to see like the span and the reach of like hip hop and hip hop culture. They send one person to represent a particular, an element of the 4, 5, 6, right? Producing, beatboxing, emceeing, DJing, aerosol art, breaking, etc. So it's just like such a full-fledged hip hop culture where you're going with people who all are like so hip hop and like it's each of the elements. So it's like so spiritual and like really dope. So
It's like a retreat to like
let
reinvigorate
me
your
tell you
your
something.
your passion.
You
It's when you
saying
have
retreat,
like-minded
I
people.
honestly, one of my big goals is to do like a big kids hip hop camp. I want to take people from all over and like go to hip hop camp, right? Where we again this idea of like time and space to do the art and the work because I see that a lot of people my age, 21, let's not forget, I see a lot of people my age that are
Mhm,
experiencing the same thing I am, like burnout from the everyday work, right? Even if it's hip hop adjacent and like you don't get to do your actual art. And so
mhm.
I would love to like host a hip hop summer camp where we all go somewhere and like we do like leadership and team building and we have specific moments where we create and we co-create. So we're going to go ahead and put that into the universe. Yes,
We'll
yes,
talk off
yes.
here and start
I
building
love it.
something.
I
I
love
got
it.
some, and we're back. There it is. There's a better pose. It's cool. It gave me a little break to drink some water, listen to more of come back with Gabe Ramirez. One of my
Ay, Dios
I kind of like
mío.
that song. It's a throwback. Um,
It's so good. Yeah, I don't know if you knew, but one of our like most famous collaborations that like did really well on YouTube back in the day, we did a remix to American
okay.
Girl and we did Puerto Rican Boy. And so he sang and I rapped versus like Estelle singing and
Yeah.
Kanye rapping and we were talking about Puerto Rican Boy, Puerto Rican Girl. It was super cute and we got like mad views on
There
YouTube
you
for that.
go. There you go. Um,
We go way back.
speaking of way back, do you remember how we met?
I do not. I'm I'm like the way my brain works.
That 21-year-old
Eating a
brain
lot of
is not working
broccoli.
very well there. Uh,
It's the knees and the brain. They stop working after 21.
so we met. You were my Uber driver. This
Oh
this was what
shoot!
this got to be mid, let's say 2014, 2015, 2016. I think we were either, well, it had to be like Mayfest, so like the German festival, which is funny because I'm drinking out of that cup today. Um,
Yes.
yeah, up in Lincoln Square, water delicious, and we left. We were on Divvies, and then we stopped at a bar to get another drink because we were like, it was a Blackhawks playoff game. We're like, all right, let's step in here, let's see where we're at before we go next to the next bar. And we ordered Uber, me and my brother, and you were the Uber driver, and you were just
Yeah.
jamming out. You were just good vibes. We were just having a great time. Then you dropped us off, and then you like give me your information. You're like, yeah, follow me. This is and that. And, I'm like, all right, cool, cool. And ever since then, like I've followed you and stuff like that. And it's so funny because like we have a lot of the same circles, but we didn't beat up anymore. But definitely follow me. But it's serendipity because it's been like probably 10 years since we bumped into each other, or actually seen each other, and then we seen each other at one of Mikey O's comedy shows. So it is
Yeah.
hilarious.
Shout out to Uber for sustaining a young lady for quite a while. Like, shout out to y'all, even though y'all also problematic, but that definitely kept me afloat for a
Of
little
course.
while. So shout out to and like it was just such a fun time. Like I got to meet so many people. I did a collaboration with uh a group called Honey and the 45s because what the lead singer was my
Oh
passenger,
wow.
and then we did a song together, and then I performed. Yeah, so it was just like a really lit time, like where I was able, because I'm just like a chatty catty, and I love like meeting people, and so it was a really dope time to like just get to know folks and network. Like it's a really good for anyone that's looking for money. It's a good networking
Sure
opportunity.
is.
And at that time, I don't think they had tips. Now they got tips. So
Yeah,
like
lucky man.
if they had tips then I would have made a pretty penny. They didn't even have tips when I started
No,
with
neither
them.
did I. I did it over the summers when I wasn't teaching, so I was doing the same thing, extra money here
Mhm.
and there. Um, so speaking of networking, um, what surprising thing that you have done while networking that's actually cashed in, like something that actually came through serendipitous networking?
Um, it's interesting because I was having this conversation with another young woman rapper who I'm taking her under my little pink wing because she's super incredible. We were talking about like risks, right? And taking chances and sometimes we don't know what the reward is, so we can't tell whether the risk is going to outweigh or, be commensurate with the reward. So because of the hip hop diplomacy stuff, I've made like connections with some of the dopest like hip hop human beings in the United States of America. One of them being Aisha Upchurch, who worked at Harvard University doing like hip hop stuff there, which was really lit. And they had a hip hop conference, and she wanted me to be the keynote
Mhm.
speaker. But they didn't have like a big budget, so I would have had to pay for my lodging and my flight, and I ended up operating at a loss. But for me, I was like, this is an experience that I want to have, right? There are some things that you invest in, and and so just being, a hip hop artist at Harvard, like that's lit,
Mhm.
right? Like the fact that again, you never thought that hip hop would take it this far. I did. I don't know if they did, but I sure did. But to see that, it's operating at a university of that prestige. Although let me give my disclaimer is that hip hop doesn't need anyone or anything or any university to validate its existence and
Right.
importance. Very important to say. Um, but just operating at a loss like that, knowing I was taking a hit financially, but ultimately I ended up booking maybe 2 or 3 more things from there. One of them being I went to Rutgers University to do a keynote for a hip hop conference, and I got to work with this group of young people called the Young Prodigies, who they're incredible young MCs, like from Louisville. So I got to go to Louisville for the first time, work with them. We did a remix of children's stories, Slick Rick, where they wanted to talk about um, violence towards children and violence in the streets, and like, it was just such a dope experience. Like, youth work is my favorite, and sometimes I feel like I'm confined to, like, the city of Chicago, and although I know our youth need this work and love and care, there are children all over the US and globally that, like, need to see hip hop practitioners, but also need to just feel, like, deeply loved by
Mhm.
adults. So just taking that risk, going there, losing money, but then making that money back and then some, doing these other things, but also just really being deeply in my bag and in my purpose, like was really dope. And I feel like almost every single thing that I have was based on someone somewhere recommending me or nominating me or whatever. So, I say that all to say like the saying is so true. It's not your net worth, it's your network.
Mhm.
Like my network is vast and beautiful, and when I need anything, I know exactly who I can call on and count on to make things happen. And that's the reason why I don't have to like actively seek opportunities. They just sort of come to me, and I'm very blessed in that
Yeah,
regard.
that's amazing. That's amazing. And I've learned that from, my Mike Yos mentored me a little bit, especially when we first started the sports podcast. When you start investing in a community, the community will invest in you. And also, do not just think of yourself as a Chicago artist or someone that gets confined just to the city. You've got to think bigger. If you have an opportunity to grow, leave the city, go experience new things, new adventures, meet a whole new set of networks, and that will make you grow as an artist. And literally things will happen for you if you're putting good energy out there and you're actually doing positive things. Positive will come back to you. So that's something that, as you see it, it's fruits, right? You plant a seed and
Absolutely.
later on you'll get some fruit out of it. um yeah.
Absolutely. And shout out to Mikey O, because Mikey O has like mentored me in so many ways. When I first wanted to do something like my own workshop, he helped me sort of identify. We called it the Pinky Project. He helped me with that. He helped me with the video for it. He helped get me into spaces and places. Whenever I need anything, I'm like, Mike, do you know someone that does this? And he's like, yeah, I got you. Like, he's one of the most incredible people in this city, because he's truly a connector, and his heart is like incredibly big. And I don't think that he gets his flowers enough like he should. Like, Mikey O is just a beautiful human who wants to see other people do
Yes.
well, and that's
Yeah, he
rare.
he really does, and I know I have a pretty good relationship with him, and then I've gotten a lot of contacts through him, and and I always give him a shout out for everything that we know. I've interviewed a bunch of comedians. I've been to a bunch of his shows. Mikey O has given me some work. Definitely, but definitely love Mikey O and for everything that he does for the community and
Yes.
for artists and so everything.
Yes.
So it was funny because at that comedy show, like I wasn't realizing that it was like in the month of May, and then I'm like, oh crap, it's my birthday month. He's like, all right, everybody who's got a birthday month, get up on stage. I'm like, oh man. And I'm like, he's gonna make me talk
Yes.
about the podcast, of course. And he's like, "Oh yeah, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a teacher." He's like, "Oh, what else do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, Mikey." Yeah,
Uh-huh. That's the day he made my friend sing too. She didn't want to sing, and he was like, "You
right.
gonna
And
sing?"
she
And
killed
like
it.
that, he just has a good way of like pulling out the best in people, even when they don't want it to be put out there.
Definitely, definitely. Um, I wanted to ask a couple questions before we get out of here, and I'm gonna have you back on the show later on because you're gonna have bigger stories to tell us. But I wanted to ask if you can work with any artist dead or alive to collaborate with, who would that be?
Lauren Hill.
Okay, and why so?
Like, she's the quintessential woman in rap for everybody, right? Almost any art, even male artists, female artists, queer artists, whatever.
Miseducation of Lauren Hill,
When
one of
you
my
think
favorite albums of all time.
100%, and when you think of her, everyone, like, she is we don't idolize folks, but we put her on a pedestal because she effortlessly flowed between like her singing, her rapping, but then her bars were like powerful and hard
Mhm.
hitting, but they also had messages in them. And she was sensual and beautiful, but not overly so. And again, listen, I got nothing against baby. I am here for these like sexual empowerment of women and women in rap, like 1,000%. But I think that she just exemplifies like just grace and intelligence and beauty and like skill and like and hip hop culture. Like, I would love to just sit with her, and like and pick her brain. Kendrick, obviously, he's like just one of the illest MCs,
Mhm.
period. I just have a thing for wordsmiths. Like, that's my thing. I love people who bend and flip and like shift language and
It
modify it to
w
like make their rhyme or make their
It's
thing
like when
fit.
you're listening to an album, you're like, "Wait, what did they say? And let me rewind it and listen to
You
it."
gotta rewind
Yeah,
it, and then you rewind it
right,
again, and then you're like, "Oh, that has 2, 3
right.
meanings." Like, yo, I
Yeah, so
love that. I
when the
love
when the
that.
bars have levels and you're like, "Oh, man, I don't know how to take this one."
'Cause you're tapping into a godly level of
Yes.
creativity at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like a connection directly to
Yeah.
source. Um, So like, yeah, like him, like J. Cole, like folks like that, I think are just like super dope. I really like um Snow the Product, who's a Mexican woman
Hmm.
rapper, who's just incredible, and like people be sleeping on her. Um, and um, Calle
Hmm.
13, like that's another like talk about he had a documentary, I think it was on Netflix, where he did his DNA testing and then have you
No, no,
seen
not yet.
this? And then traveled please look this up. You are in for a treat. Did his DNA testing and then traveled to all of the places that his sort of genetic
Actually, yeah,
makeup was comprised of, and makes music in all of these places with like local instruments and musicians. And then you're just tracing the story of him. Then he goes to Puerto Rico, and then you see like he's just activist and artist and dope rapper. That's a rap. Y'all say reggaeton, that's a
right.
rapper, you know what I'm saying? And he's a hip hop head. Like he's someone I would love to sit with one day and just talk to. Like these are all people that I model my career after, right? Like when I think of people like them, I'm like, even if they're not mega famous like a Nicki Minaj or a, Drake, like these are people that I'm like, if I can have 1/10 of like the experiences that you've had, I would feel fulfilled. But again, I'm fulfilled now. You know what I mean? Like I want to go back to what you said about like looking at the big picture. Like when I think of my life, like you were saying that your kids are like you've lived 12 lives. Like I have literally lived so many lives. Like I'm super content, right? And I'm grateful for where I am. And again, my path is my path. But like when I see that the level that they're at, I'm like, man, I would love to experience that. Like just a little bit. And even if it's just to just shadow them one day, because they're so, I think that they've got this thing figured out, right? They've got the mystery of the music
Mhm.
industry, like they have it figured out. And I would love to just, yeah, respectfully pick their brains.
What is something that people would not think that you're into? It's a vague question for a reason.
Rock
There you go.
music.
Okay.
Rock music. So in my formative years as an impressionable MC, Metallica was huge. Like I would blast that stuff in my mom's computer room and she would get so mad at me because that's the devil's music. I love, yeah, like System of a Down and Disturbed and Metallica. Like I'm here
I mean, if you're
for
an artist, if
that
you're a musical artist, you should be listening to all genres of music because they
100%.
inspire all everything. You have
100%.
JC did what did he do with what was that band? Was it not Coldplay? Linkin Park. And that was
Linkin
one of his
Park.
biggest hits. That crossover was huge, and it became a video game and all that stuff. Okay. Yeah. Well, you know what? Before we close out, I got two quick questions. One, and maybe it's not so quick, but where did the name Pinky Ring come from, and how did you settle on Pinky Ring?
Let me tell you that I had the worst rap name of all rap names. It was
What was it?
bad. And I can't even disclose. You're gonna have to ask Gabe Ramirez for that one. He might give it to
I
you,
thought
but
he'll
I
give
can't
it to
give it
me.
to you. It's bad. It was just like real hip hop, like it was bad. And so I remember meeting a manager at the time who was like, absolutely not. Like that's not good for mainstream rap success. Like it's not it. Um, and so
Hmm.
Pinky first came from me hating the color pink, not wanting to wear pink. When I was in high school, this is so 50 Cent G Unit, they were formative in my
Okay.
years as a budding MC. And so they had a music video where a girl had G Unit on the
Hmm.
butt. And I went to the Mega Mall again. Yo, shout out to the Mega Mall. How sad that this is like a cultural
Yeah.
institution. Like that should have been preserved. Went to the Mega Mall, got spray painted pants on the butt, G Unit, and started wearing pink more. And everyone started calling me Pinky, and I hated it. But I realized like pink looked really cute on me, and I was like, oh, okay. But then everyone started calling me Pinky. Like even if they didn't know me, they'd be like Pinky. That manager, he's like Pinky, and I'm like, why does everyone keep calling me that? Like I hate that name. And so it just was a thing that stuck. And then my manager was like, it's going to be Pinky something. So figure it out.
Something.
Bye. And so it's gonna be, so figure it out. And so I was really like rack as the wordsmith MC. I'm like, what is the thing that I can add to this to make it what I want it to be? And for me, hip hop culture, like Pinky Ring, is just part and parcel with hip hop culture, right? Like every rapper talks about their pinky ring, from Ludacris to Nas to Wu Tang. Like everybody got AZ, everybody talking about their pinky ring. And so it was that, but it was also like I studied abroad in college. I went to Italy, and so like Italian
Yep.
mafia culture, kiss the pinky ring out of
Yep.
respect, like that. So it was like very much represent. So it's not anything that has to do with money or bling or like none of that. It's more like respect, right? Like when I'm in a cipher, they're like, that's cool. We need to show her off. We need to put her in the center. And so I just, rappers, we can't spell things how they spelled. So I changed the K to Q for queen. And so that's sort of how Pinky Ring came. And there's a bit of a longer story to that deals with some hood stuff and some gang banging
Whoa.
stuff. But that's the we'll give you the
That's
short
for
version of
episode
that.
2. That's for the continuance of this.
Dun, dun,
That's right.
dun. Stay tuned for more.
All right. Before we get out of here, I have one last question. If you can give 3 pieces of advice to 10-year-old Pinky Ring, what would that be?
Hmm. Um.
I stumped her.
You did. You don't need to do or be anything other than who you are. It's it's perfect. You're perfect, right? Just as you are. You don't have to change who you are. You don't have to adjust to what other people want you to be. Um, if they don't mess with you, that's on them. That ain't got nothing to do with you. Like you're literally a perfect, like you're perfect in God's eyes and in the way that you were made. You don't have to prove your goodness, your dopeness, your intelligence, your worth to anyone. Um that's one. Two, yeah, is what I'm trying to do now is just, remove expectations from how things are going to go, because you're blessed and your ancestors are guiding you and God is guiding you, and your path was predestined. So just enjoy the ride, right? Because fighting it is only going to
Mm-hmm.
prolong the goal that you need to get to. Um, and heal, heal from those things that hurt you, that broke you, that were meant to, like, remove you from this planet. Like it's okay to not be okay, and you're going to do really great things once you start to sort of unpack that trauma, crack your heart open, and then put the pieces back
That's
together.
beautiful. That's beautiful. Give our listeners your social so they can follow you and they can bug you about your music.
First of all, my Cash App is $ Pinky Ring, Venmo at Pinky, PayPal at Pinky Ring.
Support your local
The most
artists.
important social media. Give me some money. So you can find me on Instagram at Pinky Ring, PINQY period
Okay.
RING. Facebook, you can search up Pinky Ring, again, Pinky with a Q, PINQY RING, pinkyring.com. But we are updating my website at the moment. TikTok, Pinky period ring as well. They're all sort of Pinky period ring. Carrier pigeons with money are accepted. Rich uncles are also always accepted. My mailing address is, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, this was so much fun, Pinky. We'll have you down the line again because this is so much fun, and we
Thank
definitely got to deep
you.
dive into more stories. I know there's more I wanted to get into, but I know our time is limited. But thank you for being intoxicated with me.
The check is in the mail for the therapy session. The check is in the mail. I already wrote it. Signed, sealed, deliver, baby.
Love it, love it. All right, thank you for being intoxicated with me.
Of course. Thank you.
What's up? I mean, this was a great episode, and unfortunately, we were out of time because I definitely had way more questions for Pinky Ring. There's a lot of stories that we didn't get to touch to because she has an amazing story and lived quite an exciting life. but definitely I wanted to talk more about her music and recording her process. I know we didn't get to all that, but we will in part two. We want to talk about like where she grew up and where she grew up and how she grew up and her type of family dynamic. That's definitely stuff on the queue. But I mean, uh, great story. I mean, Jesus, she's doing things all over the world, traveling. On these semi retreats. She's been, Belgium and Argentina or wherever she was. She was all over the world, spreading the hip hop word and doing stuff with the youth. And she showed out the frustrations of the music industry, and actually taking people under her wing. And again, we talked about who's helped us, that you need community to be successful as an artist. I mean, all these things are just positivity, and positivity brings positivity. So I really hope that you enjoyed this podcast, this episode with Pinqy Ring, and that you'll come back. But I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, 606 Media. And thank you for supporting us and supporting the show. So stay tuned, stay subscribed, and we'll be back with another great episode. And thank you for being intoxicated with Big Z.